Well, ladies and gentlemen, it really is now the final countdown, is it not? We have 3 days to go to the single most important vote that we are ever going to have in our lifetimes. And I have to say, for me personally, this marks the end of a very long road indeed. Because I've been going for this I've been working towards this now for 25 years, and for most of that time, I thought I was going to become the patron saint of lost causes. But suddenly, it's quite trendy, I think, to be a Eurosceptic and to believe that the best people to govern Britain are the British people themselves. Now, it's been a very, very long campaign indeed, and a campaign that was stopped in its tracks by that horrendous incident that took place last Thursday. And I think it was right and it was appropriate that there was a pause in the campaign. But I do want to say this. There are one or two within the Remain camp, their spin doctor perhaps being foremost among them, but some of their speakers who, it seems to me, have tried to say that the motives of that man were somehow whipped up or inspired by a Leave campaign that had fought on a nasty, negative and hateful agenda. That has been said. That has been said over the course of the last 48 hours, and I just want to say this and put it clearly on the record. That man, who had his own mental health issues, that man acted in isolation. What that man did was an act of barbarism, and every one of us who will go out to vote to leave condemns utterly and thoroughly what he did. Now, some have tried to demonise me or demonise others in the campaign to say we've upped the rhetoric. Compared to the Scottish referendum, we have done no such thing. All we have said on the subject of immigration is we believe in sensible, balanced, controlled immigration so that we can have the right number of people coming to this country to boost our economy and to benefit our society. But we know that we can't do that as members of the European Union. Nothing insightful or wrong about that. Now, amidst all the sound and the fury of this election campaign, there's been much talk about economics. Indeed, our Chancellor, with every appearance, becomes even more doom-laden about our prospects if we're not members of this union. He tells us he may introduce an emergency budget. Those of us on our side fight back by explaining that trade is trade and that BMW will want to go on selling their cars in this country, and that indeed, in my case, there is a producer of claret from Bordeaux who is particularly keen that I go on buying it. And we've had a big debate on immigration. But let me put it to you like this. Actually, despite some trying to paint themselves out as being the good guys since that awful murder, and us being the bad guys, the reality of this campaign, whether we look at the economy, whether we look at immigration, whether we look at Britain's place in the world, the reality of this campaign is that the Remain campaign have been totally and utterly negative and pessimistic in virtually every single thing they've said. I don't hear from the Remain campaign how wonderful the European Union is. I don't hear them telling me how they believe in the European flag, how they stand to attention when the anthem plays. how they pay their respects to Messrs Juncker and Van Rompuy. Shame he's retired, really, but anyway. And they don't tell me what a wonderful project it is, how exciting it is, that it's going to be enlarged, it's going to take in 4 new countries, including Turkey. No, they deny. They deny all of these things. They even try and deny the fact that a European army is being built. They deny it because they know the British public don't want to buy into it. And so what they do is give us constant fear-mongering. I believe that our side of the campaign is the side of the campaign that actually has said we are optimistic. We, unlike you, who say Britain isn't big enough, Britain isn't strong enough. Actually what they mean, folks, they don't think Britain's good enough. And what we're saying is, we believe in Britain. We think Britain is big enough, strong enough, and good enough to run its own life. Maybe in some ways it's now too late to go over the economic arguments and the immigration arguments, but maybe there is now just one key factor that we need to instill in the British people so that we can get across that line and score a huge historic victory this Thursday. The one thing we need, ladies and gentlemen, is a simple word, and it's confidence. Let's exude confidence. Let's explain to the British voters that our Parliament can make our own laws. It did so for centuries, and that once those laws are made by us, those MPs will be directly accountable to us at each election, and if they failed us, we'll get rid of them. Let us have the confidence to believe that whilst there's a lot we can learn from our European neighbours, one thing we don't need lessons on is liberty and justice. That this is the country that from Magna Carta has had the most progressive system of law, has given its citizens the best protection against tyranny, and that we feel we'd be better and more fairly governed by our own Supreme Court rather than a European Court of so-called justice in Luxembourg. We should have our own courts and be the ultimate arbiter. And let us have the confidence to believe that when it comes to making trade deals, not only will our European neighbours, as I've said already, want to sell us their BMWs, want to sell us their red wine. After all, they sell us £1,000 a year more than we sell them for every man, woman and child in this country. Let's have the confidence to recognise that in any trade relationship, they need us far more than we need them. But let us have the confidence, let us have the self-belief to say that we can forge our own trade deals in the world. We don't need to be part of this big sclerotic bloc run by unelected bureaucrats. And we see little countries like Singapore, little countries like South Korea, little countries like Switzerland, who've got bigger trade deals globally on their own than we've managed as one of 28 in this club. So let us have the confidence to believe that we can stand on our own 2 feet, trade with the world and make new friendships and new associations, and that a very good place to start would be the 2.2 billion people that live within the Commonwealth. Let's re-establish our links with the Commonwealth. And frankly, that's all we need to win, to believe that we can do it, to believe that we're good enough, to believe that we're proud enough, to believe that we recognise the tremendous price that those that went before us paid so that we and the rest of Europe could live in free, liberal democracy. Recognise that. We are not leaving Europe. We are leaving a European political union, a union that we were conned into 40 years ago, believing it was simply about trade. We are leaving this political union. We are rejoining the world. We are taking back our birthright, our ability to run our own affairs, to control our own borders, to take back that 200 miles of the North Sea here in the northeast of England. And if people say to you that voting never changes anything, tell them that this Thursday is the vote that will change everything. And explain to them that the battle lines could not be clearer. And I saw this last Wednesday on the River Thames. Now I'd worked with a fellow called Bob Spink, a former MP, and we decided to invite representatives of our struggling fishing industry who've had such a rotten, miserable life under the Common Fisheries Policy to come to London, to go up the Thames, to protest outside the House of Commons and to ask for their voice to be heard, for their communities to be listened to. And what were we met with? Well, we were met by a multi-millionaire Irishman who apparently was a rock star once. I never believed it myself, but there we are. But we were met by this enormous gin palace with Bob Geldof in charge, who apparently just before he set sail called on his mobile phone the Prime Minister to have a conversation. And along with a lot of upper middle class New Labour types, they basically mocked not just me, but those men and women who travelled from across the entire United Kingdom. I thought for multimillionaires to mock working, struggling families, actually, and if you think about it, they are the battle lines of this referendum. On the one hand, we have the big banks like Goldman Sachs, the multinational businesses like Siemens Engineering, and big politics. And on the other hand, we have ordinary men and women from all walks of life, all ages, all races, struggling small businesses, ordinary people who've got a rotten deal out of the modern corporate world and who recognise that just simply for the sake of corporate money, that our political class have literally given away our country. And what we have got to do, we have got to claim that back on Thursday. So we must go out there. We must tell this political class that we want our country back, and we will make, for all time in history, June the 23rd, our Independence Day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to win. Thank you. Give us that. You pass it over. There we go. That's it. We want our country back. Come on, join with me. We want our country back. We want our country back. Thank you.